Hello, my name is Gokey Gamer, coach of the Milwaukee Medichams, and this is log number 8 of testing the power of these Paradox Pokemon for Professor Turo. I have been recruited by the Professor to help gather intel on these Iron Pokemon by battling with them in this old do association, and in exchange I have been promised a championship title as these Pokemon are just that powerful. This week we're going to be battling a coach by the name of Orizan in the Arizona Chardinals, and while this game doesn't matter too much as by this point we are the only team confirmed playoffs, and unfortunately Orizan doesn't have great odds making playoffs, we're both still going to be giving it our all. After all, I want to keep my first place seed. The team that we'll be battling this week consists of the return of Ursaluna-Blood Moon, which got dropped from a Praetor after our fight on week 3, Jirachi, Urshifu Single Strike, Tornadus Incarnate, Fezandipiti, Sinistcha, Tentacruel, Articuno, Palmont, Hisuian Arcanine, and Alolan Executor. The Tera captains consist of Tornadus with Tera Flying, Steel, and Ground, Articuno with Tera Ground, Water, and Steel, and finally Alolan Executor with Tera Dragon, Steel, and Fairy. A team full of scary threats like Tera Tornadus, Urshifu Single, and Palmont is bad enough, but if you've been a fan of the channel for a while, you'll know how threatening even the Mons Jirachi and Fezandipiti can be. In terms of what I'm expecting to come, I'm thinking it's going to be Jirachi, Palmont, Tornadus, Ursaluna-Blood Moon, Sinistcha, and one of the other Tera captains. We've got quite the game ahead of us, so let's get into what I'm bringing and why I'm bringing it. The first Pokemon we're bringing is actually a surprise dedicated lead designed to pick up an immediate KO. It's King the Weavile. Holding the Focus Sash with a Pickpocket ability for the first time in this league, we've got max attack and an adamant nature with enough speed to outspeed the fastest Pokemon on my opponent's team, being Tornadus, and the moves Knockoff, Triple Axle, Low Kick, and Ice Shard. All this set is meant to do is immediately take my opponent by surprise by getting rid of items, discovering possible scarfed Pokemon, and weakening as many Pokemon as possible to open the doors for my remaining Pokemon to sweep. Another Pokemon that I'm hoping will help my remaining teammates sweep is none other than Spiny the Pincurchin. Once again holding the Terrain Extender for the Iron Mons we're bringing this week, this time we're bringing a special set with max HP and max special attack and the moves Discharge, Scald, Spikes, and Recover. While King will be knocking off items and dealing massive amounts of damage, I'm hoping Spiny will be able to paralyze, burn, and hazard stack against my opponent to wear them down. And since they didn't steal an Iron Mon from the Professor, this time we're going to be the only ones with Quark Drive to sweep teams. Speaking of Quark Drive, let's talk about one of the best Mons with that ability. Of course, it's our ace First Class, the Iron Valiant. Holding the Life Orb this week with max special attack and enough speed to outspeed Tornadus as well, we've got the moves Dazzling Gleam, Orosphere, Psyshock, and Shadow Ball. And if you're wondering why I packed Dazzling Gleam over Moonblast, don't. I did not forget about Moonblast. Don't worry about it. Anyways, this set is guaranteed to be the fastest thing on the field when the electric terrain is up, and I'm intending to take full advantage of that to end sweep win this game. After this major iron threat is another one of our major iron threats, Hawaiian Pizza the Iron Moth. Once again rocking the Power Herb Meteor Beam tech, we've got max special attack and enough speed to outspeed Palmont, the remainder of our EVs being in defense, and our other moves being Fiery Dance, Psychic, and Dazzling Gleam. Not much needs to be said about this set, nothing wants to switch in against this insane threat, especially once it gets a special attack boost. We just need any and all Scarfers gone before Iron Moth can truly shine. Yet another classic set on this team and in general is going to be our 5th pick Mechagodzilla the Iron Thorns. Holding the Lumberry to prevent any Toxic Spikes or other status shenanigans, we've got the moves Supercell Slam, Ice Punch, Dragon Dance, and Earthquake with max attack and enough speed to outspeed Tornadus at +1. We've also got the Tera Flying type so that we can catch Ursaluna-Blood Moon off guard and be immune/resistant to the incoming ground, fighting, and grass type attacks from my opponent. If King and Spiny can put in work weakening my opponent's team, then I know for a fact that Mechagodzilla can finish things off with a W. And finally, rounding out the team is none other than our other Tera captain, the return of Carboniferous the Yanmega. A set that you are all probably very familiar with by now from week 6, we're holding the Throat Spray and we've got the moves Bug Buzz, Air Slash, Protect, and Tera Blast. We've also got Speed Boost and the Tera Ground type, max special attack, and enough speed to outspeed everything at +1 that isn't Scarfed. To be honest, which Pokemon I Tera will depend heavily on what my opponent brings. Both Tera captains look absolutely phenomenal into my opponent's team, and I'm excited to see them both pop off this week. And that is the complete team we're bringing for this match. To be honest, I'm feeling quite confident about this team, but my opponent could easily bring some unique sets that could really put a dent or even stop my entire team, so I can't go into this being too cocky. But with that said, I'd say let's go ahead and head into the battle. Logging into the match, we see a team that I didn't quite expect, but I'm very excited to see. Not seeing any Palmont immediately opens up Weavile a lot more, and it also feels great not seeing Tornadus or Jirachi, although the combination of Hisuian Arcanine and Urshifu does scare me quite a bit. Regardless, I stick with my lead Weavile as my opponent leads with none other than Urshifu, a lead that I did expect but I am still excited about because I've got Low Kick specifically for this major threat. However, because Low Kick doesn't quite kill from full HP and also fearing a slow Drain Punch, I actually decide to go for Knockoff to get rid of a possible choice item. Thankfully, I'm immediately rewarded as Urshifu does in fact have a choice band, meaning that now Urshifu is thankfully heavily nerfed. Still a major threat of course, but much more manageable now. After we knock off the choice band, the big bear actually goes for a U-turn, not even popping our focus sash and bringing in none other than Hisuian Arcanine, meaning that this thing probably has extreme speed and is clicking it now. So in response, I decide to switch in none other than Mechagodzilla to easily eat the incoming attack. Yikes, that's not ideal. Unfortunately, this week I'm not running heavy duty boots or any rapid spin Pokemon, so those hazards are there to stay. Weavile will die upon switch in, Iron Moth and Iron Thorns after Tera are weak to rocks, and Yanmega will lose half of his HP upon switching in. This really is not good. We're going to have to rely on our nukes to severely dent my opponent's team now. Thankfully, this does give me a free Dragon Dance as my opponent ends up switching out into none other than Ursaluna-Blood Moon. And here is quite the interesting situation. Obviously, I could click the Tera button now and reveal my flying type to avoid the obvious Earth power, but if Blood Moon goes for a, well, Blood Moon attack, then that could deal a crap ton of damage and in a couple of cases even KO Iron Thorns. It's essentially a 50-50, but I'm willing to risk Iron Thorns here. Yes, keeping them alive to win the game would be really nice, but I really wanted to save the Tera button, at least for now. So I decide to click the Ice Punch. And we managed to get that prediction right, meaning that while we do have to tank a Vacuum Wave on the next turn, dealing some more chip damage, we can safely fire off another Ice Punch, getting rid of the big bear and putting us in quite a great position. However, after Blood Moon goes down, none other than the tall palm tree, Alolan Exeggutor comes in next, and I'm left with yet another prediction. Since this is the only Tera Captain my opponent brought to this game, the way he has brought it in tells me that most likely my opponent will be clicking the Tera button here to finish me off. The only question is, which Tera type? If my opponent is Tera Fairy, Supercell Slam would be the best button to click. If he's Tera Dragon, then Ice Punch would be my best play, and if it's Tera Steel, then Earthquake would be the best bet. I doubted that this tree would be Tera Dragon since I've already revealed Ice Punch, so I decided to go for the safest play, being Earthquake. And thankfully we do get yet another prediction correct, as while Earthquake doesn't quite KO, it does take him all the way down to the red and trigger his Citrus Berry as my opponent clicks Trick Room. Wait a minute, this could be a problem. I did not account for this during my prep for some reason, although looking back it makes a ton of sense against my team. During the next turn, I decide to let Mechagodzilla go down to save my Tera for Carboniferous, but the problem is Giga Drain recovers Exeggutor's HP quite a bit, and on top of that, Exeggutor unsurprisingly reveals that its ability is Harvest, meaning that he now has another Citrus Berry, putting us in a very rough situation. I then send in the only Pokemon that can put a stop to this behemoth. Weirdly enough, it's Spiny the Pincurchin. I would send an Iron Moth, but I'm also afraid of an Earthquake popping off and ruining my day. Since we're naturally one of the slowest Pokemon in existence, I decide to go for a Discharge and pray our naturally low speed is enough to outspeed this major threat. And while thankfully we do manage to outspeed, we barely miss out on the KO as the Eggy goes for another Giga Drain, doing about half of our HP and also restoring his HP with his second Citrus Berry. But fortunately, it looks like the roll is in our favor to KO on the next turn. And Spiny picks up an extremely important KO for our team, getting rid of the Trick Room Tera Captain, heavily opening up the rest of our team, and critical to winning this game. The next Pokemon that ends up switching in is none other than my opponent's lead Pokemon, Urshifu, and since Trick Room is still active, we still outspeed. However, knowing that most likely Urshifu is going for Sucker Punch, I decided to go for Recover to get my HP back up. And thankfully we managed to get quite a bit of HP back as I once again correctly predict my opponent's attack, putting me in a fantastic position. Here is when I decide to take advantage of my sack and throw out King the Weavile to unfortunately die to the rocks. Literally, rest in peace King, and prevent Urshifu from going for U-turn, trapping him on the field and allowing me to fully take advantage of the situation by sending in none other than our ace, Iron Valiant, to hopefully bring it home and putting my opponent on the extreme back foot. Here is where I make yet another somewhat crazy prediction. I decide to go for Psyshock, predicting my opponent to swap into one of their poison types. And it turns out that's exactly what my opponent decides to do as they send in Fezandipiti, which actually tanks the hit quite well despite it being from a max special attacking Iron Valiant that's holding the Life Orb. Hoping for a high roller for my opponent to overpredict, I decide to go for another Psyshock, putting him in the red, but unfortunately they end up firing off a Roost that restored even more HP than the amount we took away, meaning that if we continue to stay in and attack, this is a losing game. As a result, I actually decided to swap it to our own poison type, being none other than Hawaiian Pizza, the Iron Moth, as my opponent once again clicks Roost, unfortunately getting all the way back up to full HP, but still putting us in a pretty good position, especially considering that the electric terrain is still up. As a result, despite Urshifu still being alive, I opt to click Psychic to hopefully deal a massive chunk of damage, and while Fezandipiti does end up switching out, what ends up coming in is none other than the other poison type being Tentacruel, meaning that despite the fact that Tentacruel is a deceptively specially bulky wall, we deal nearly 3/4 of the jellyfish's HP in one blow, meaning that despite the electric terrain finally going down, reverting my special attack back down to neutral, a second Psychic is still enough to pick up the KO, leaving my opponent with just 3 Pokemon left. In response, my opponent sends an Urshifu once more, and knowing that my fate could be up due to an incoming Sucker Punch Extreme Speed combo from Urshifu and Arcanine, I go for a Dazzling Gleam. And in an unexpected turn of events, my opponent actually doesn't click Sucker Punch, thinking that I was actually Choice Spexed, and as a result immediately falls to a Dazzling Gleam, meaning that Iron Moth can just run away with the rest of this game as long as I don't miss this Meteor Beam on the incoming Arcanine. I click the button and pray that my Celesteela luck from Generation 8 doesn't carry over to this gen. And just like that, it's all over for our opponent as Iron Moth endgame sweeps once again like back in week 1. Fezandipiti stands no chance against our incoming psychic attack, especially since we're at +1, so we win the battle and cement ourselves not just into the playoffs, not just in the top 4, but in the #1 seed in the entire league. Fun fact about this massive accomplishment, as far as I remember, this is actually the first time I've ever become the #1 seed in my draft league career. There have been a number of leagues where I've managed to get second, most draft leagues I end up in the bottom half of playoffs, but here, I secure the #1 seed for the first time in my career. If you were to tell me that this team would be the one to accomplish this massive feat in Milwaukee Medichams history a few months ago, I honestly don't know if I would have believed you. But it appears that the professor is right. These Pokemon really do hold immense power. And now, we just gotta win 3 more games to earn our championship title. Now, some of you might be wondering, isn't there 9 weeks in this league? While it is true that there are 9 weeks in this season of the SDA, our final opponent decided to simply give us the forfeit win as I was on vacation at the time, and while I said I could still battle, he just wanted to give me the win, meaning that we finish off this season with 8 wins, 1 loss, and a whopping +24 differential, the best finish of any season the Milwaukee Medichams have ever had. As a result, we immediately go into the quarterfinals, facing off against our first opponent, none other than CJ Jensen, the 8th place seed, and an opponent that we have yet to face. The layout of this playoffs push is actually quite favorable for us, as regardless of who wins between Nico, Ryan, and Muffins, there will also be a new opponent for us to face in the semifinals. The only chance of us having a repeat battle is only if Godbear or Gengar Heracross make it to the finals, and fortunately for us, they battle each other in the quarterfinals, so depending on the semis, we might not have to battle either one of them, which is extremely great for us as both of them would be very scary matchups for us to face off against for our final game. With Godbear knocking us out of the playoffs last season, and Gengar Heracross being the one team that beat us in the regular season for this one. Stay tuned next week for the quarterfinals, as I'm feeling quite confident and excited about the potential of us earning our first championship title, especially since, well, we're the team to beat. Regardless, that will be the end of this vlog. If you're still watching, thank you so much for your support. If you guys enjoyed this battle and want to see more, then leave a like, comment, and subscribe as it helps our research on these Ironmons immensely. I would also like to shout out Orizan's channel as well. Their channel and their side of the battle will be linked down below, so please be sure to check them out. GG's to them again, and I wish them luck for the rest of the season ahead. Also be sure to check out some of our other Draft League content for more battles from me. If you want to show support financially and earn some unique perks, then be sure to check out my Ko-Fi linked down below as well. With that, this is the end of the log. See you all next week for our quarterfinals game. Peace out, mates. We did it, Professor! We've earned the #1 slot of the regular season! Oh, of course, we are only going up from here. 3 more battles and the championship is ours. But, that being said, Professor, I request to take care of these Pokemon from here on out. And I also request for you to stop doing your experiments, at least for now. I need these Pokemon in peak condition if we're going to win these games, and I know you need that for your research too. And besides, I am tired of seeing you torture these Pokemon with all of the experiments that you have been doing recently. Wonderful. Thank you, Professor. I am glad you see to reason. They might be your Pokemon, but I can definitely tell they don't take to you too kindly. And quite frankly, I don't either. Maybe if I win this league, I can strike a deal with him.